still though, in that moment, I felt really alone, and I was scared. I was really scared for my life. I even said to my husband, if I can't get this situated, I don't know how I would continue living. That's how I felt.
Welcome to the Radical Health Rebel podcast. I'm your host, Leigh Brandon. This work started for me several decades ago when I started to see the impact I could make on people, helping them to identify the root cause of their health problems that no doctor could figure out, including serious back, knee, shoulder and neck injuries, acne and eczema issues, severe gut health problems, even helping couples get pregnant after several IVF treatments had failed. And it really moves me to be able to help people in this way. And that is why I do what I do and why we have this show. In today's episode, I'm joined by Leeza, a passionate health advocate for holistic health and someone who's walked the difficult path of healing firsthand. Leeza opens up about her personal journey with eczema, what triggered it, how she struggled to find answers in the conventional system, and ultimately how she reclaimed her health through natural methods. We explore the powerful role of diet, detoxification, and emotional well-being, and how they play a role in skin and overall health. Leeza also shares valuable wisdom on setting boundaries, learning patience, and tuning into what your body is trying to tell you, especially when progress feels slow or uncertain. This episode is all about empowerment, about trusting your body, taking back control of your healing, and learning how to support yourself naturally and holistically. So if you or someone you care about is dealing with persistent skin issues or feeling stuck in the medical merry-go-round, this conversation might offer the clarity and encouragement you've been searching for. Leeza, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on.
Thank you for having me, Leigh.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, as I said. And what I'd really like to do to start things off is to get to know a little bit more about you and, to give the audience a feel for who you are and, where you're coming from. So what's your background and what drew you into the world of eczema and psoriasis?
Well, my background is actually not affiliated with health, to be honest, but the universe had a different path for me. I guess you could say it was course correction. Incidentally, when I moved to the UK shortly after I graduated uni, I think maybe a day or two after I graduated uni about 20 years ago, I moved to London, England. I was minding my own business and enjoying life as a young adult and training at the local Fitness First in Brixton at the time. And that's actually where I met my very first Czech practitioner, who really sort of mentored me into a way of living that is more holistic. And so although I had just come out of uni with a degree actually in economics, and I was in London working in banking, but also pursuing a singing career, I didn't see health as sort of a part of something I would be doing, for a livelihood. But it turns out that that's what I needed. Now I see why I was where I was at the Fitness First in Brixton 20 years ago, meeting this up-and-coming young Czech practitioner, who introduced me to Paul Chek and Paul Chek's ways, if you will. And at that time, incidentally, when I was living in the UK, I didn't really have any health issues. I was in my mid-20s, fresh out of uni. The only thing that I had struggled with really had been some psoriasis actually on the scalp. But during my time in the UK, I actually had some relief from that. And so it wasn't a big point of concern, if you will. And still I pursued, my holistic lifestyle because I thought, I'm fortunate enough to have health. I'm going to maintain health. And more importantly, what I found with the teachings that were coming from my then mentor, who was a Czech practitioner, was that with Paul Chek stuff, I didn't feel like I was being mentored or led to do things that were anything other than just sound right knowledge, for lack of a better term. Meaning with Paul Chek and his way of sort of re-educating us. And I use that term intentionally because I do believe that all of us had this wisdom internally anyways. We wouldn't have made it thus far. if we didn't have it within us, just by virtue of the fact that in our DNA we carry our ancestors. They knew how to live a holistic, you know, full life. They knew how to care for themselves. They knew how to have adequate movement, I believe, sleep, etc., nutrition. And so with Paul Chek's teachings, it was more of rather than being taught, I was more remembering. And so that's why for me it felt very right. So although I had this new degree as an economist, I was pursuing singing, and at that time I had full health, what I believe to be full health. The psoriasis obviously would be an indication that there wasn't full health. Over time, my health started to see more challenges, and the people around me were becoming increasingly more sick, and that kind of wanted me to, that gave me the desire to want to share this new lifestyle that I had not immersed. I had immersed myself. I had immersed myself into the holistic way of living, meaning that, my sheets were organic and natural fibers. My food was organic, but I didn't have the language, the verbiage, and the education necessarily to be able to pass that on and encourage the people around me who were becoming increasingly sicker to also make the necessary changes. Come 2020, being sheltered in place was the perfect time for me to now shift my career into health and holistic lifestyle and eating, all things holistic, if you will, because again, I continued to have more and more challenges with my own health. And I also wanted to acquire the language and the education to be able to speak intelligently, to communicate the message that had so profoundly, given me a path forward as insofar as how I can help myself and do for myself. And so it really started in 2020 when I immersed myself in the Czech, or rather, I joined the Czech Academy. And since then, to be honest, my health has continued to become more and more of a challenge, to the point where I experienced what I believe is my first real experience with eczema. Uh, Real issues with skin I've never really had, apart from when I had chicken pox, I think at the age of 5. I'd never had any other concerns with my skin. In fact, I'm a person that doesn't wear any makeup. I literally just moisturize. I don't even put on lip gloss unless I'm going on a date with my husband, but which is the extent of like the makeup that I'll put on. But on any given day, 300 and however many days out of the year that I'm not out dating my husband, so to speak, you'll just see me with a clean face. So my skin and keeping it clean and dewy and just looking after it by eating well, by sleeping well, by hydrating were always big on my to-do list. And then last year, I experienced what was a very traumatic expression of eczema, which was a first for me. And thankfully, I had my Czech studies to fall back on, as well as my Czech mentors, because I can tell you that when it first happened and I went to see a dermatologist, they had nothing for me. In fact, what they told me to do was take a bleach bath, do light therapy, and take steroids. Those were my options. So I was very grateful to have had something else to fall back on. But essentially that was my first experience with severe skin problems, was exactly a year ago when, like I said, I had literally from hairline to ankles, full on lesions, front of the torso, back of the torso, on the eyelids, cheeks, arms, legs. It was so traumatic and so painful that I was at home for nearly 2 months. I was unable to work.
Mm. And at that point, where were you in your career? Were you still singing and doing the other stuff as well?
No, so by the time we get to 2020 and I've immersed myself into the Czech Academy, I have shifted out of wanting to do what work I was doing. I was already sort of moving into wellness because in 2019 I took a 500-hour yoga teacher training session in Ecuador. So I had already done that in 2019. I already knew that my time sort of in entrepreneurship and in business was going to shift from things like banking and real estate, which is what I had been doing, into I really want to pursue health and wellness because I'm passionate about this. It all feels right. It feels like this is what my voice is actually for. Um, and I feel like I'm good at it. I feel like I'm good at it. And I don't feel like everything that brought me to Paul Chek and the Chek Academy was by accident. I feel like I moved into Brixton when I did for a reason. I went to Fitness First for a reason. I met my then mentor for a reason. And everything resonated with me. And so I knew I was going to transition out of what I had been doing prior into this career of just helping myself and others.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, just to go back to something you said, I don't wear makeup either. I
It's
know,
healthier. It's
I know
better
that's a
for
big
you.
surprise to everyone, but um, yeah, no, I was asking about were you singing because I could imagine if you're a singer and you've got a skin condition, that would be pretty hard to go out in front of people and sing, with that condition, right?
Yeah. And no, thankfully, by the time this episode happened and I had experienced full body lesions and all the rest of that, I was not actively singing or performing, although it's always going to be a part of me. It's a way of expressing myself. I think it's a form of therapy for me as well. So I sing daily. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not actively in a studio now recording and writing music or performing. But I sing daily. I sing to my puppies, to my husband, to myself, to, to the house.
I'm gonna
I
I'm gonna get you
literally
to
am
do
making melodies.
I'm gonna get you to
Sorry?
do a rendition of the Four Doctor songs at the end.
Angie's better than that. Angie's better at that than I am. And I appreciate her having a song, by the way, because it helps me to retain the information.
That's the whole point. Yeah, I'm not going to sing it because I think I would lose all my listeners. Yeah, I'm a
We'll
little
leave it
tone
to
deaf.
Angie.
I'm a little tone deaf, unfortunately.
It's all in the breath control. My vocal coach out in the UK actually used to always tell me anyone can sing. It's just about control and also being able to hear your own voice.
Mm. Yeah, you might have to give me their number.
I can do.
So, if you could take us back to the time before you had skin issues, do you think that there were any key events or patterns in your life that you think may have contributed to the condition?
Yes, thank you for asking. So, like I said, I've been living this holistic lifestyle for a very long time. My clothes are natural fibers, my towels, my hand sheets, my cleaning products. So, even before I joined the Czech Academy, I was already, thankfully, because I have worked with so many Czech practitioners, at least 4 or 5 high level Czech practitioners who I even consider mentors. Um, I had not experienced anything like that until, and this is what I think led to this explosive expression of eczema. Um, in the spring of 2022, I decided to do a fast, 40 days. And in that, not only did I change my body, right, because I didn't eat for 40 days and the composition of my body, everything changed. There was a lot of weight loss. Everything that needed to go went. But when you work through everything that you've been carrying within yourself, within your body, this beautiful vessel, which is really nothing short of a miracle, when you work through that, what's left? There's going to be stuff left there from decades ago that you didn't realize was still sitting there that now has to get processed in a way of speaking. In a matter of speaking, it's being processed or worked through. And I believe from what my soul has guided me to, that what I did when I fasted for those 40 days was I essentially got down to all the pharmaceuticals and shots and antibiotics that had never really been processed, if you will, by my body. that had just sort of been compartmentalized, which includes things like heavy metals, because a lot of those pharmaceuticals, some more than others, carry heavy metal as a base. If nothing else, they're carrying petroleum, which is also something that the body doesn't process. But because the body is so forgiving, and you know this being a Czech practitioner, the body being so forgiving and so generous, is it compartmentalizes things in order to help us move on with our day to day, right? Until after a while you've overburdened it, and then something happens and you have to pay attention. As as Czech practitioners, you and I would refer to that as the pain teacher. So what I believe happened was I got all, everything that needed to come out of my body came out, and then it started to work through heavy metals. It started to work through pharmaceuticals that had been sitting there in the cells, just waiting for an opportunity to be dealt with. And I believe that's what led to this eczema expression, which was my first and only experience with eczema. And I don't expect or plan to have another one. I have seen through other medical journals and the like that eczema and psoriasis can be an expression of H. pylori, which many people have, and also heavy metals, which almost everyone has, especially in the West, I would say.
Leeza came to see me looking for a solution to her long-standing eczema, which had been frustrating her for years. Despite trying countless creams and treatments prescribed by her doctor, nothing seemed to help. Together, we reviewed her test results, addressed her concerns, and set clear, achievable goals for her health. With my ongoing support and personalized guidance, Leeza saw significant improvement in her eczema. As her skin cleared up, her confidence grew, and she began feeling better, not just physically, but mentally too. If you're struggling with a chronic condition like eczema and you're ready to take control of your health, I can help. If we're a good fit, we'll work together to make your health goals a reality. Reach out today for a consultation at www.bodycheck.co.uk and let's start your journey to better health. Yeah, just for the audience, so what you were alluding to is that what the body does very well is, if there are certain toxins in the body, to protect vital organs, the nervous system, glands, etc. If it's not able to eliminate those toxins immediately, what it will tend to do is it will tend to store them in fat cells as a protective mechanism from the body. So what you were saying was, when you did a 40-day fast, I guess the body starts to detoxify, right? Because obviously you're calorie restricted, right, to zero for 40 days. So I guess those fat cells that were holding onto the toxins were starting to break down, right?
Yeah.
But if they're coming out too fast, that's when you can get a problem, because obviously we do have different organs of detoxification. So the lungs, a lot of people don't realize the lungs are an organ of detoxification. So when we exhale, we're exhaling toxins out of the body, which is why it's a really stupid idea to put a mask over your face, right? You've got the kidneys, right? So we excrete urine. So the kidneys gets rid of what we don't need. We've got the intestines, so the colon. We have bowel movements to get rid of toxins that way. But another one is the skin. So if our systems of detoxification / elimination aren't optimized, and there's an excess of toxins being released from within the body, what the body will tend to do is say, okay, we're not coping down here, we need to get it out through the skin, right? So,
yeah.
So would I be right in that as kind of what you were suggesting you feel was what happened to you, and that's why you had your eczema experience?
100%. Because although, the videos that I sent you were from a year after I had done the 40-day fast, the reality is, if I'm being honest with you, is I started to have expressions of that 2 weeks after I completed the fast. So it was kind of teeter-tottering. It was kind of coming a little bit and then going, coming and then going until eventually, just short of a year after completing that fast, the onslaught of the lesions was just boom, everything just came out of my skin in one go. It was just being pushed out. Um, and it probably happened that way also because it wasn't just the 40-day fast and then I was completed. After 40 days, I resumed eating for 2 weeks and then I did another 2-week fast. And then after that, I sort of adopted this habit of fasting, kind of like Paul Chek does, once every week, right? And so I continued to fast even after that massive detoxification. And so I guess I just kept pushing stuff out. And what I've learned through that is that because, as you just mentioned so succinctly, the skin is one of the organs of detoxification. It's also the largest organ in the body. It was a reflection of kidneys that were overburdened. It was a reflection of a sluggish liver, right? Hence why so much of that pollution was pushed out onto my skin, onto the surface of my skin. And what was a very uncomfortable, very traumatic, very scary experience for me. Because I'm not going to lie. You know how we have the Czech totem pole? Forgive me for those of you that are not familiar with the Czech totem pole, but we have this amazing totem pole as a reference point as Czech practitioners, where we are reminded through this totem pole, there's a hierarchy to things, and with emotions, if you're not able to regulate your emotions, they can supersede anything else that's going on with you. Hence why people can take, very extreme actions, such as unfortunately taking their own lives. I bring that up to say I was so desperate and so scared during that time that I completely overstood and understood that concept of your emotions can supersede and override any sort of logic or anything else, because in that moment I was so scared for myself. And I couldn't go to work. I was not sleeping because of the itchiness, the fieriness. That those lesions eventually also led to boils. It just became this snowball effect of, you know, just anxiety, maybe a little bit of depression, a great deal of uncertainty. And so although I have the Czech stuff and the Czech practitioners who are my mentors that I could call upon, eventually I did find myself going to a dermatologist because I just didn't see how I could carry on living that way. And you have an insight to that because I've sent you the video. You see just how severe that expression was. It wasn't uh, to the audience who doesn't know this, it was it looked like a burnt victim is how my brother described it, essentially, from head to toe, all of my face included.
Mm. Yeah, it's a bit triggering for me when I hear the word dermatologist. Uh, not from my own experience, because I actually, when I had my own acne issues, I never actually saw a dermatologist. I only ever dealt with my GP, who I'm sure was doing the best he could, but was completely useless. But when people come to me, having seen dermatologists, their story is very similar to yours. And to a degree, it's not, it's not, I don't want to put all the blame on them because that's how they're trained. But how many times do you have to see someone and what you're suggesting they do doesn't work before you actually start to question what you're doing? I mean, and it could be for some conditions they do a good job. But when I see people coming to me, it could be acne, it could be eczema, it could be psoriasis, the advice that they're given, it's just simply not trying to treat the root cause of the problem. It's trying to suppress the problem, right? So in your instance, let's assume your assumption's correct, and your eczema was caused by the release of toxins from the body, right? How how is putting steroids on your skin going to let you know that you need to release the toxins from your body because they're doing you harm, right? Any kind of symptom, it's a warning sign, right? It's like a burglar alarm, right? If you've got a burglar alarm on your house and it goes off at night, you think, well, I need to deal with the burglar, right? But we need to call the police, and you might need to physically deal with the burglar, well, or certainly your husband would in your case, right? What you wouldn't do is say, oh, well, let me turn the burglar alarm off, right?
Right.
But that's exactly what's happening when
Right.
when someone goes to see a medical professional with a skin condition, and they often get given steroids to suppress the alarm system, right? When you've got a symptom on your skin, it is an alarm system alarming you, making you aware that there's an issue inside the body. So why would you want to turn the alarm off? You've got to understand what the alarm's trying to tell you, right? And in your instance, it was telling you, you got some toxins you need to get rid of here. And, what I try and get across to, if clients come to see me with skin issues, it tends to be acne more than anything else. If you want to go down the medical route and suppress the symptoms, fine, that's your decision. But understand that if you've got a skin issue, it's your body trying to tell you something's not right on the inside. And let's say you use some medical treatment, ointment, whatever it might be, and temporarily your skin looks okay, but now you're ignoring what's causing it in the first place. So if it's heavy metals and you don't address the heavy metals, yes, you might temporarily be able to deal with your skin condition and you might look and feel a bit better. But 20 years later, that might turn into cancer because you haven't addressed the toxins now, right?
100%. 100%.
So, I do get frustrated and it saddens me when I see people reaching out for help on social media and they're just saying, what products can I use for this? And again, it's not necessarily their fault. It's how they've been taught to think. And it's really difficult. I try and help these people, but they just can't see what I'm trying to say. They can't see through it. It's too far from their current paradigm to even consider what I'm trying to say to them. And I say it in a very kind way. I'm not judging them, or I'm just trying to gently push them in the right direction. And quite often they're quite aggressive in their response. Right. So I've kind of given up. I spend too much time of my own time trying to help people and they just didn't want, they're asking for help. Right. It's not like I'm going to them saying, oh, I can help you. No, they're literally asking for help. Right. So I try and push them in the right direction and they don't like that because they want to keep their current paradigm. As you were saying earlier, they don't want to take responsibility for themselves. They want someone to come in and fix them. They're playing the victim and they want the rescuer to come in and fix them because that means they don't have to do anything.
And to be fairly, in their defense, I will say this, the machine, the matrix of it all has been really effective at telling people it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It just is. So let us help you since it's not your fault. It's not your decisions. It's not your lifestyle choices. It's not what you're eating. It's not the fact that you're drinking too much alcohol. It's not the fact that you've taken on too many pharmaceuticals. Everything around us is constantly telling us it just is. So let us help you with that, which is exactly the opposite of what I try to do when I work one-on-one with my clients, because I think as effective track practitioners, part of our job is kind of breaking down that illusion and reminding people that this is not unlike a Hollywood stage. There's a lot of messaging here and a lot of there's a lot of programming that's happening, but it's counterintuitive if you're paying attention. And it's disempowering, like we were saying earlier before we started. It's disempowering. To me, part of the part of what's so great about taking accountability is also that you're empowered. Like, so I can make different decisions and have different results, right? I can stop eating Chips Ahoy and Oreo cookies. I can make my own homemade cookies and make them life affirming by adding adaptogens, which is what I do, making them gluten free, even grain free, using organic, naturally sourced products, right? And I can still enjoy my life, right? And I can make my own cakes because I don't deprive myself of anything. I make my own ice cream. It's just that I've had to take on the responsibility of, just because it's organic, it doesn't mean it's safe and effective, so to speak. Just because it's vegan doesn't mean it's good for me. I've really had to say to myself, I got myself here to some degree. Some things were out of my control in that I was a child when a lot of this medication was administered to me, to be honest. Right. So there's only a level of responsibility that I can take for that. But today, where I'm at today and how I handle it, that's absolutely within my control. So you're right. Everything has been designed to pacify us, to disempower us, and kind of to dumb us down also, right, from the reality of it. But the reality is, just as you were saying a moment ago with regards to, yeah, you can take steroids now, but 20 years from now, what will be the cause and effect of those steroids? Because there's no such thing as a free lunch. And we know this, right? Everything has a cause and effect. Well, here I am 20 years on after taking the last probably vaccines that I ever took were probably 20 plus years ago. But look at what I'm having to deal with now, right? So the last shots I think were Hep C or Hep B shots that I may have taken before I knew better, right? But now that I know better and I'm not taking any more shots, what am I doing? I'm cleaning up the decisions that I made 20 years ago and the decisions that my parents made 30 and 40 years ago before I had any real say-so. Those are the challenges that I'm dealing with today. And I believe that those are the challenges that most of us are dealing with, because I believe, as one of your previous interviewees actually said, who did an episode with you regarding autism, he had brought up the quote that Hippocrates made, which is, all disease begins in the gut. And I believe that that is what most of us are dealing with today. Those of us that are in our 40s now, we're still in the prime of our lives. And yet we're dealing with issues that I believe are pretty much a result of decisions that were made 15, 20, 30, and 40 years ago. Because as we know, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And all the antibiotics and all the previous shots and yada, 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 pharmaceuticals that we took are now, there's a reckoning for that. And to be fair, they have a list of potential side effects listed on their packaging. So it shouldn't be a complete surprise to us that our decisions have brought us here. And it also, I think, is really important for the listeners to understand and understand this bit, that all of those things I've just mentioned, whether it's a shot, an antibiotic, a pharmaceutical, go straight to your gut. They go straight to your gut. That's where they get processed. And so when you connect the dots to what Hippocrates said, which is all disease begins in the gut, and you understand and understand that anything that you consume in through your mouth has to go to your gut, then you can see how repairing the gut is going to be oftentimes the first thing you have to get to. And that takes a long time. I would say it could take easily 1 to 2 years. Easily. It's not a short term.
Meet Jill, a holistic lifestyle coach and Pilates instructor who struggled with eczema her whole life. Despite living a healthy lifestyle, her eczema had spread across her body, leaving her feeling frustrated and self-conscious. After thorough testing, we discovered Jill had a parasite infection, leaky gut syndrome, and toxic overload, all contributing to her skin issues. We worked together on her diet and lifestyle, and over time, Jill's skin began to clear up. As her skin healed, so did her confidence. She's now socializing more and has a newfound self-esteem, which has even boosted her confidence at work. If you're struggling with a similar skin issue, reach out today for a consultation at www.bodycheck.co.uk and start your own journey towards better health. Yeah, it's interesting. You kind of got me thinking a little bit about my own kind of acne journey, although I did get eczema for about 18 months in the middle of that 18-year period. In that, even all my milk teeth were full of metal fillings. As soon as I started getting my adult teeth, by the time I was 15, I had 5 metal fillings and 1 metal root canal. And, listen, I grew up in the 70s. Everyone in the UK in the 70s was poor, right? 99% of people were poor.
Right.
So my parents worked really hard to put food on the table, clothes on our back, roof over our head. And, we never went without. I certainly didn't. But when I look back to what my mum was cooking, right, it was like, okay, well, no wonder I had bad skin, right? I remember my mum used to, fry what you guys call French fries in oil. And then when it cooled down, she'd pour it back into a container, in a plastic container, and then reuse it time after time after time to try and save money, right? And then when I got into my early teens, even by the time I was 10, 11, my dad started his own business. Things started to change financially at home. Now we could afford Coca-Cola and fruit juice and, and then the microwave oven came out. So we started microwaving our food, right? So, you were saying, it wasn't really your fault from the beginning. And I was likening my own experience to that because, I wasn't involved in any of those decisions really, apart from, my mum might say, well, what do you want for dinner tonight? But then she did the shopping. So I could only choose what had already been purchased. Now, again, my parents 100% did the best they could. I'm not going to criticize them for a second. But by the time I was 18, I had all these metal fillings and I had a face, chest and back full of acne. Was that my fault? Probably not, because I didn't know any better, but neither did my mum didn't know any better either. Although she did ask my doctor on several occasions, is Leigh's acne anything to do with what I'm feeding him? And the doctor, no, there's absolutely no connection whatsoever between acne and diet, right? And it's still on the National Health Service website today that there's no link between diet and acne, which is frustrating. But when I look back at it now, as an adult, okay, you might have been dealt certain cards, but now it's down to you what you do with them. So like yourself, I went through a process of, I started to eat better foods, eating more organic, eating right for my type, started getting my metal fillings replaced, had my root canal tooth removed and I have now a zirconia implant. And over time, you take responsibility for the hand that you were dealt in younger life. And okay, I went through that experience of acne, which was not pleasant. Spent God knows how many thousands getting my teeth sorted, right? But would I be the person I am now without that? Definitely
It's our
not.
teacher.
And as a practitioner, what a great learning experience, right? Because I can empathize with people with skin conditions. I know what it feels like. I know exactly what it's like to have all your metal fillings replaced safely. Again, would only use biological or holistic dentists to do that. I know what it's like to have a root canal removed and zirconia implant put in, right? So I can talk from experience. Yeah, I probably could have bought a Ferrari if I didn't have all that work done, but hey ho. So yeah, that just really related to me in terms of your experience, because you're right. And I don't blame my mum. I don't blame even the dentist that put metal in my mouth because they didn't know any better. If a dentist was to do it now, I would say, well, okay, that's not right. And I'm sure some still do, and I'm sure some still believe that it's safe to put the most toxic heavy metal in someone's mouth, even though if it was found on the side in their clinic, their surgery would get shut down. But if you put it in someone's mouth, all of a sudden,
It's
that's
safe
completely safe.
and effective.
So yeah, the other thing I wanted to just mention as well, I've had a lady on the show called Brianna Banos, and she produced, well, two movies actually, one called Preventable and one called Still Preventable. And it's about topical steroid withdrawal. Have you come across TSW?
I've heard about the withdrawal on your podcast, but I've not
Right.
come across these documentaries.
Yeah. So if someone goes to medical doctor, dermatologist with eczema or psoriasis, quite often the first thing offered is corticosteroid, and
Yeah.
because it reduces inflammation, and temporarily they can be quite effective at reducing symptoms. Can make someone look a lot better, feel a lot better. Might mean they can go to sleep at night. All those kind of things. But what people aren't told, and actually a lot of doctors don't know this, and even when doctors are told it, they don't believe it, is that when you stop taking those steroids, it can cause a massive rebound. And it's called topical steroid withdrawal. And what it looks like is the worst type of eczema you could possibly imagine. And it feels like the skin is on fire. And then you go to your doctor and they go, "Oh, we've got just the thing for that. It's called a corticosteroid." And then the patient's like, "But that's what's caused the problem." And they're like, "No, no, 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 it doesn't do that. No, no, take a steroid. And if you won't take a steroid, then, get out of the medical system." You know, it's
Yeah,
very, very frustrating. But,
very.
but yeah, I'd highly recommend those movies. So you can watch them on YouTube, Preventable and
Oh,
Still Preventable.
thank you. Yeah.
Really powerful movies. And it's all about making people, and probably more importantly, making doctors aware of topical steroid withdrawal. And there's lots of doctors on in the movie, and there's lots of eczema sufferers or TSW sufferers in the movie as well. And there's some of them that are still, many years down the line, they're still having to take other types of medications just to get through the day. Which is really, really sad. But I don't think it's going to take too long before people start to really work out how to deal with that. But yeah, but definitely check out those movies.
Thank you. I will do.
So when things really flared up for you, how did you handle that in the moment? What was your thinking or emotional state at the time?
My emotional state was not ideal. Like I said, there were moments of desperation, meaning, you know, when the entire body was consumed by lesions, and I finally decided to go to a dermatologist because at that point it's an acute emergency, right? And that's what the medical industry, what the medical professionals are there for. To me, you and I are health practitioners that specialize in chronic things, chronic conditions. But if it's an emergency, which is what this was, as you could see, what had happened to me, I needed to go and see a medical doctor, and that's what I did. And I came out of that initial meeting feeling worse than how I felt initially going in, because, like I said, he initially just said to me, well, first, let me just say this. I went in there and I said, "Hello, doctor. I'm so and so. And listen, I have not been to medical school. However, I'm a holistic health coach. I'm an integrative health professional, meaning I'm not entirely green. This is what I study. I coach clients on health. And I'm very passionate about this. And I'm hoping that we can collaborate together to figure out the best solution forward." And I said to him, I've gone down this rabbit hole and I've come to realize that, partly this symptomology is indicative of syndrome X. Some leaky gut is taking place currently. I know for sure that my kidneys are not filtering, and definitely my kidney is sluggish. Otherwise, I wouldn't have these lesions. And he literally just looked at me, Leigh, and said, I don't know what you're talking about." And that was really disheartening, because where I thought that I could go in and not expect him to treat me as a peer, because I understand I've not been to medical school. And yet still, there's a level of intuitiveness and intelligence that doesn't even come from me, that comes from a higher source, that is telling me there's something larger here going on. And I would like to collaborate with somebody who has studied the body to this degree, i.e. a medical doctor, and figure out, how can we support the organs that are in need of support? How can we address the leaky gut in the best way possible in order to not only recover, but to ensure that this doesn't happen again. In other words, to really heal. And all he had for me was, I don't know what you're talking about, but if you want, I can recommend we can do a biopsy, which we did. And that's how actually they came back that it was eczema. And then then he said we could do light therapy. You could do a bleach bath at home, or you could do steroids. And so I left there feeling like, wow, I'm really, I felt I was alone, even though I knew I had Czech practitioners and the like that I could have, and I did reach out to my mentor. And still though, in that moment, I felt really alone, and I was scared. I was really scared for my life. I even said to my husband, if I can't get this situated, I don't know how I would continue living. You know, that's how I felt. I was really low. And then I just decided to do a quick search online, and I came across this book called Healing Psoriasis, which, for those of you that can see the visual, it's called Healing Psoriasis, the Natural Alternative. It's a drug-free program that really works, written by John O. A. Pagano, who was or is a chiropractor, a chiropractic physician. And I got to work. And and then I laid out the protocol as outlined in the book. And within 2 months, I was able to resume working. 2 months after that initial appointment, where I was looking like a burn victim, but not getting any real sort of care or help from the medical industrial complex. Within 2 months, I started to clear up and was able to resume work. But I will tell you that I'm still on this journey a year later. It's not 100%. I would say I'm 99% there. And that's why I said earlier, when it comes to things like repairing the gut, be prepared to be 12, 24 months into this journey. It's not going to be a quick fix. And I think that that's probably the thing that even though I have accepted this, I think it's the thing that clients are challenged with the most when I work as a holistic practitioner. I'm curious to know if you get that sort of similar impatience from people, that if you tell them right off the bat that this is going to be a 12 to 24 month journey, that they're sort of taken aback and frustrated, simply because we've made things so convenient nowadays, right? You can get Postmates and DoorDash and Amazon delivering and giving you quick solutions to everything. But there's not a quick solution to things that are natural and organic. And I think that I still want to hear what your experience is with your.
Yeah,
with
I mean, completely. So, when I work with people, generally, I say to them it's a minimum of a 6-month commitment to start. And in a lot of situations, that's enough time for me to teach people everything they need to know. But, again, it's down to the person to take on board what I'm suggesting they do. Now, in some instances, it does take longer. And, detoxification is not something you want to rush, right? Especially of a skin condition.
Yeah.
And especially if that skin condition is caused due to toxicity in the body. Because if you're releasing toxins too quickly, all you're going to do is exacerbate the symptoms. So, there's lots of pathways in that instance you've got to make sure are clear. So you've got to make sure your colon's working optimally, right? So, we could talk about, 12-inch poopy policemen being released every day, right? And we could go into a lot of detail about that. But you got to make sure, your liver's doing its job properly. How well, for instance, just a simple thing, how well are you chewing your food? Or what kind of environment are you eating your food in? Are you in a job that's still being exposed to other toxins? And if so, that's going to slow the process. Because, yeah, you can get it coming out one end, but if it's constantly coming in the other end, then it's going to take a lot longer. So in most instances, I would say 6 to 18 months is normal for people to get if they're really following the program. And, there are times when someone in their own head thinks they're doing everything I've asked them to do. And the reality is that they're not, right? Because they've made a lot of change and they've made a lot of progress, and that's all great. Sometimes they don't realize what else there is to do. They might have done, I don't know, let's say 6 things, and they're doing those 6 things really well. Oh, I haven't got a result now. So, well, yeah, we've got another 6 stages to go. You're only halfway through, and you might not need to do all 6, but you still might need to. So it is a really tricky situation when you're dealing with someone's psychology and someone's emotions. And, I do have a lot of tools in my toolbox to help people. And that's why when did I release it? Last year, I released an online program called Stickability. So people can go through a whole series of processes to, if you like, bulletproof their mindset. So they've got loads of tools in their toolbox. So once they start on a particular goal that they're aiming for, that they're far more likely to achieve it. And again, I know what people's minds are like nowadays. Each lesson is like 5 to 10 minutes long, because I know people's attention spans are very short. They've got to do work after each lesson. But, if people struggle to take things on board, or they might hear themselves saying, I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough money, or whatever excuse they continually keep coming up with, something like that is really useful. And what that is really a culmination of all the things that I've learned probably over the last 27 years that I've been looking into behavior modification, psychology, and all those kind of things. Because I think as health professionals, I don't think the difficult thing is advising people to do the right things. It's actually helping them to actually put them into practice. Did you know that 92% of people fail to follow through on their New Year's resolutions? That's right. Year after year, most of us start strong and then lose momentum by February. Sound familiar? But what if this year could be different? What if you finally had the tools to make your goals stick? Introducing Stickability, a simple, effective, and affordable program designed to help you overcome the cycle of failed resolutions. In just a short time, you'll learn how to create lasting habits without wasting hours or breaking the bank. This isn't just another plan. It's the solution to finally sticking to your healthy lifestyle goals. Don't let this year be like the last. Head over to stickabilitycourse.com now to enroll. It's affordable, easy to follow, and packed with tools to make 2025 the year that you have the ability to make it stick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say for me, 6 to 18 months for most people, sometimes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But generally, yeah, I mean, maximum 24 months, most people can turn things around. As long as they're actually putting the things into effort and not, oh, I can't do that this week because, and I can't do it next week because,
Right.
they've got to
In other words, don't create a crisis, as we say, right? If you have a big enough dream, you won't create a crisis.
Absolutely.
So,
and that's the first thing I get people to do on Stickability is to understand what their dream is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because again,
And that's just it. Yeah.
Apart from New Year's resolutions, people don't really set solid goals to aim for.
Right. Yeah. So,
and even when they do, quite often it can be the wrong type of goal. And we're talking about skin. If I ask people, I'll say, right, how would you like your skin to be in an ideal world? And they normally say, well, I don't want eczema, right? And I say, yeah, but if that's what you don't want, what is it you do want? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, eczema is what you don't want, but you're talking about eczema. So how do you want your skin to be?
Yeah.
And then finally the penny drops and they say, oh, yes, I want my skin to be soft and supple and moist and calm. And right, now we're on the right track. Because if you're constantly thinking about eczema,
Right.
what vibration are you creating?
Right.
Creating the vibration of eczema, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to understand what it is that you want. And then once you understand what it is that you want, also you need to understand what is that going to give you? How are you going to benefit when you achieve that goal?
Yes.
Right. So it might be more confident. I might be able to sleep at night. I might perform better at work.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be. I might be more confident in social situations. I won't feel like everyone's looking at me. So I'm going to feel more calm rather than feeling anxious. That's the important things that you need to understand, because then you're far more likely to stick to the plan.
Yeah. 100%. Um, and so, this protocol required dietary restrictions as well as a whole lot of supplements. I was spending close to probably $1,000 a month whilst on this. But the benefit was that unlike those quick fixes like the steroids or the metal fillings, right, which now we're paying for 20, 30, 40 years later, um, y- everything in this protocol is natural. And so you know that there aren't going to be any negative consequences 5, 10, 15, and 20 years down the line. And that should be enough, I would hope, to encourage people to seek this, because there's not going to be any uh, steroid withdrawal symptoms after you pursue, a plan that I hope would work for most people. Like I said, this book again is called Healing Psoriasis. And I'll just outline quickly some of the things that I had to do was avoid eggs and red meat, nightshades, for over 8 months. I didn't touch chocolate or caffeine for 8 to 10 months in any capacity. And I was taking, like I said, a lot of supplements every single day, things like castor oil, flaxseed oil, grapeseed extract, copper, even milk thistle, right? But again, things that are easily identifiable in nature and that wouldn't be considered quote unquote chemistry, and that don't require a prescription, right? And so my dream was big enough to not look like the burnt victim, that I stuck to it. And like I said, I can honestly sit here today, a year later, and tell you that I'm 99% clear. There's still a little bit left, and so I know I'm still working through healing my gut. I know that there's a lot still that my gut is processing. I know that there's still some repairs happening in terms of leaky gut syndrome there. And I'm being patient, just like you have to accept that the seasons are going to be 3 months long, right? I have to accept that this is a season as well. And I would urge listeners to be patient and be kind and be loving, because your body wants to heal. My skin wanted to get back to normalcy. It doesn't want to have lesions on it any more than your skin wants lesions on it. So knowing that your body is your ally, knowing that it's a journey, and remembering that if your dream is big enough, as Jerry Welsh said it, you won't create a crisis. And to the point where, and I really want to drive this home, to the point where last summer, because I was still going through that eczema episode and we had a family trip planned to Vegas, I brought my own food for 5 days that we were out there. I wasn't going to be eating things that were sprayed. I wasn't going to be eating things that had gluten or white sugar, because I knew that I was on a healing journey and I wasn't joking around. I was desperate. That's how big my dream was. And so I packed my own food, which included pancakes that were delicious, which included sandwiches on homemade sprouted bread, you know, um, loads of things that I had that were great. And I just supplemented in Vegas and got things like coconut water and spring water. But what I'm saying is you can do it. And I'll take it this far. I've even traveled with my own food to Rwanda, to Kenya. I supplemented more because I was out there longer. But what I'm saying is, again, because I was on that same healing journey, I had ample nuts and seeds that were sprouted and raw and organic with me. Again, I brought my own slices of homemade cake because I knew my hubby was going to be having pastries and I didn't want to be left without. So, I made stuff that was still within the protocol of this. That was just that I had to teach myself to make in order to not feel like I was deprived and yet still feel like I could enjoy my life for the next foreseeable future. So it can be done. It can be
Yeah.
done. It just requires a
You
will.
know, one of the things that I often say to my clients, I have lots of cheesy sayings, but they're powerful. Planning to fail or failing to plan is planning to fail,
Yeah.
right? So doing things like that, taking your own food to places. If getting well means that much to you, you'll do it. If it
Leigh,
doesn't, you'll make an excuse.
yeah. I'm so serious that I carry coconut sugar and manuka honey when I can have sweetener. I carry manuka honey and coconut sugar with me, not only to coffee shops when I meet up with friends here locally, they travel with me internationally. I don't take any chances. At this point in my life, I'm here to support my body, and my body is doing an amazing job of supporting me. So, as an ally, I'm not going to just put whatever, not having remembered what I've remembered, because again, just to reiterate, the things that I have acquired from the Czech Institute, in my humble opinion, are just things that we already knew and just needed to be reminded of. That's how simple and that's how natural the Czech approach is, and that's why it resonates with me. And it's the same thing with this healing psoriasis, but it's natural, it's simple, it resonates because you're not doing anything that's harmful. And it's common sense that everything that I'm doing here is not harmful. Castor oil, flax seeds. But you can't say the same thing about steroids.
Yeah.
That's why it comes with a warning label.
Yeah.
That's why there's a warning label and nature doesn't have one.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never seen a movie about reactions to apples.
Right. Exactly. So,
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things you mentioned there about, the gut can take a long time to heal, and that's my experience
yeah.
with clients, but also, I did take antibiotics for 18 years, which I know saying that out loud sounds horrendous, and it was. I stopped taking them 25 years ago, and my gut is still healing.
Exactly.
It's still not where I would like it to be. I mean, it's probably better than 99% of the population, but
Yeah.
it could still get better. It's the best it's been for a long, 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 long time. Probably before I started taking antibiotics. But it's 25 years.
Yeah.
So I do understand why people want to get better quickly, but sometimes you've got to be patient. The other word I often use is tenacious. You've got to be tenacious. You just got to keep going, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you might come up against a brick wall. Well, then you got to work out, okay, do I go over it? Do I go around it? Doesn't mean I stop, right? And sometimes you might be on a particular plan and you might need to change the plan,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Because actually it's funny that you said that because before I got onto this protocol, I was on the anti-candida protocol. But the anti-candida protocol was different and wasn't going to address the psoriasis slash eczema. So you have to be flexible, you have to be patient, and you also have to just remember again that your body wants to heal. All you have to do is support it along its journey.
Yeah, I mean, there's a saying that the body doesn't do anything incorrectly.
Right. How
It's just
profound.
reacting. It's reacting to its environment. So it's
Yeah.
reacting to what you're putting on it and in it. It's
And this
reacting.
environment is so unnatural to us, right? The constant electricity and exposure to that, the 5G, the chemtrails, the genetically modified and toxic food environment, the clothing, the cleaning agents and solvents. It's very unnatural. So what you said is so profound
Mhm.
because it's a perfect body trying to respond to very imperfect ways of living.
Yeah. Yeah. And our bodies work really well when they're in nature,
Yes.
right? When we take them out of nature, it's going to try and adapt. And when you get things like eczema, psoriasis, etc., it's your body trying to adapt in the best possible way. And one of the things that it's doing is saying, hello, there's
Yeah.
something not right here that you need to find out.
Yeah.
It won't spell it out for you, but like your engine warning light on your dashboard, when there's a problem with the engine of your car,
Right.
you possibly need to go and take it to someone who can find out what the issue is and help you deal with it.
Yeah.
The only difference with a car mechanic, he'll fix it for you. When it comes to your body, you go to the right person, they'll teach you how to fix it yourself.
Exactly. 100%. And that's what you and I do.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
you and I do. Since you brought up nature, I just also want to add that for me, grounding was a huge part of my healing journey as well in recovering my skin health. So again, to listeners, especially since we're in the season, those of us that are in the Northern Hemisphere, this is our summer season. Technically, it's going to be summer tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So happy summer solstice.
Yeah.
And grounding was critical for me, and I think is critical for anyone that's going through repairing of the gut, skin, anything that you're really going through. I have a loved one in my family who is autistic and on the spectrum, and I can tell you that even he, when he's outside grounding with me, feels like so much better. He said, "I don't know why, I just feel really good when I'm barefoot on the grass." And he's a teenager, so he doesn't need to understand the signs, but if it's coming from a teenager, listeners, there might be something to it. And I think, Leigh would also co-sign that, getting your feet out in nature on grass that hasn't been sprayed, on soil that is organic, will help anyone along with anything that they're trying to recover from, or heal from.
Yeah. Yeah. So, going through that protocol, if you like, I'm guessing was pretty intense.
Yeah.
And also, the whole experience of what you went through with your skin. What did you take away from that experience, kind of physically, emotionally, and spiritually?
I've been thinking about this the last couple of days because I knew that this interview was coming up. And surprisingly, what I'm going to say is not what I would have said a week ago. But here we go. Boundaries. I'm going to flip the script now, right? We've spoken about the obvious things. Nutrition matters, stress matters, emotions matters, circadian rhythm matters, gut health obviously matters, right? And also having boundaries. I honestly believe, as somebody who's a recovering people pleaser, as a woman who had the disease to please, not having boundaries, I think, shows up on multiple different levels. I think it shows up in your gut in the form of leaky gut. I think not having boundaries can also show up on your skin in the form of psoriasis and eczema because you become, I'm not going to say you're not, it makes it difficult for people to get close to you and for you to be in intimate situations when you have lesions or your skin is on fire, if it's, whatever that expression looks like for you. It is obviously a barrier between you and intimacy with someone outside of yourself. And so I would say also look into your boundaries and whether you have adequate boundaries. I do believe as a Trek practitioner, we are also taught this, that everything has a spiritual component. So if you are suffering from if you are challenged with skin issues, I would say also look at your boundaries and get set and firm on your boundaries and do so quickly.
And that makes complete sense when you think, well, what is your gut and what is your skin? They're boundaries, right? Your skin is a boundary to the outside world. And whilst this might sound strange to most people, so is your gut lining.
Yeah.
People think of your gut as being inside your body. Technically, it's not. So we have a tube that goes from mouth to anus. It's called our gastrointestinal tract. But actually, that's also a boundary. So that protects us from anything that gets through that system from entering our bloodstream, right? It is a barrier.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think of it in those terms, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So get clear on your boundaries. And when you have your boundaries, get clear on your dream. And when you have your dream, don't create a crisis.
Yeah.
You will prevail. You will come out on the other end.
Absolutely. So what's next for you, Leeza?
So now, incidentally, I've been doing these rounds, these talks on the podcast, which has been very helpful. And people are coming to me with eczema and psoriasis issues. And so I didn't think when I initially started my Czech career that I would be sort of specializing in skin. And I may not always be in skin, but I feel that this is very much my wheelhouse right now, is to be here to help people, to help them remember, to empower people to make life affirming, health affirming decisions, to have boundaries, and to reclaim their health to the best of their ability.
Awesome. That
Yeah.
sounds great. And if someone's listening, they want to dive deeper into your work or reach out, where's the best place to send them?
Thank you. So my social handle on IG is Alkali Yogi, spelled ALKALI, Alkali. It would almost be like alkaline, but minus the NE. So Alkali and then Yogi, which is YOGI. You can find me on IG. You could also just email me at alkaliyogi@yahoo.com. Or if you want to go onto my website to see what my offerings are, alkaliyogi.com, ALKALIYOGI.com. I offer a free consultation where I'll be very candid and honest with you insofar as whether or not I can help you, if I feel that we would be a good fit. And if not, one of the great things that I love about what we do as Czech practitioners, Leigh, is that we know when to refer out. So I know when to refer out to somebody who is more equipped. And it could be Mr. Leigh Brandon that I would refer you out to. It could be someone else on the Czech faculty that I would refer you out to. It could be a medical professional, a naturopathic doctor. But that's the great thing about that consultation time that we have, is that I get to overstand and understand whether it's a good fit. We are trained to not hoard our clients. We are trained to study a little bit of everything as Czech practitioners so that we know when it's time to refer out. And it's one of the things that I love most about us. Is that we always work in the capacity of, which is to the benefit of the person coming to seek us and seeking help. So know that you're going to be in good hands, even if they're not my hands. You can reach out, we can have a chat, and if it's not a good fit, I will refer you out, and that chat is free of charge to you. So
awesome, great stuff, Leeza. Thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed talking to you today. I mean, it's always great sharing time with a fellow Czech practitioner, but this has been really great.
Thank you so much, Leigh. I'm so honored to be on the other side of this podcast as a speaker instead of a listener, but happy also to continue listening.
Awesome. Great stuff. So that's it from Leeza and me for this week, but be sure to tune in same time, same place next week on the Radical Health Rebel podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to give the show a rating and a review, and I'll see you next time.